What's up, guys? It's me, Peasington Flips, and today we are going to be talking about weight in balisongs. Heavy balisongs or light balisongs. Today we are flipping the one and only Vixen V2, and I will be doing my final thoughts on this guy eventually, but I flipped this guy and it got me thinking about something. Specifically the fact that it is a heavier balisong, around 4.6 ounces, and kind of what that does. You know, I have been a member of the balisong community for, like I've said before, maybe like a year, maybe a year and some change now. And the trajectory of the balisong market when I got in was leaning towards more of a lighter balisong. Having very aggressive cutouts, not a lot of material. We had like the Orion 1.5, for example, which is a similar balance to this guy, but has a sandwich construction of aluminum, so very light. And that was like the first live blade that I ever had. So I've always been really used to flipping light, and this is like my first, other than the Telesto, this is like my real first heavy, because this is heavier than the Telesto. This is my first real heavy balisong that I have flipped before. And I think the first thing that I noticed is, wow, my fingers are not ready for this thing. So when you first pick up a heavy balisong and you're not ready for it, they don't feel good. I don't blame people for not liking heavy balisongs. I think it's very hard to get into. Literally, your fingers have to get stronger. When I first had to flip this, I would have to take breaks because my hands would get tired, or I would start to basically cramp up in my forearm. And having lighter balisongs kind of helps to remedy this issue of fatigue. But if you keep with it, you start to get a lot of the benefits that a heavier balisong will give you. So for me, I like to use the analogy of a bicycle. So if you've ever ridden a bicycle where you can change the gears, what I look at the comparison of is like a heavy balisong. Let's do the light one first. A light balisong is like going up a hill and you lower your gears so that you pedal really fast, but you don't necessarily move fast. So you are putting a lot of the effort in to get the movement out of your bike wheel. Whereas a heavier balisong, it's kind of like you're going on a flat spot and you want to crank up your gear to a higher one. So you don't have to pedal as fast, but you can maintain the momentum that you already have on the bike. And with a balisong, when you have a heavier one, it kind of forces you to flip in a certain way. It forces you to flip to where you are taking advantage of the momentum that you are already gathering. So I have noticed that my flipping, you're a lot more aware of doing ricochets and momentum shifts because it requires physically more effort to do those things. And I think while ricochets are great, it is kind of a bad habit if you are prioritizing flow. So having a heavier balisong, by virtue of its weight, is going to make you a flowier flipper. But also, it's more likely to kind of stay in the same angle or motion it's going to be. With a lighter balisong, if you make small imperfections in your flipping, it's more likely to display itself within the actual balisong because you're having to move less material. So these like smaller secondary muscles that you have that are making micro movements away from what you necessarily want to, they're going to show up more with them. So, I feel like a lot of people look at weight as this boogeyman. You hear 4.6 ounces and you think, oh my God, there's no way. But then you hear a lot of these OG flippers, and I didn't believe it until I had it. The weight really does help. It makes it smooth. I can sit here and while my fingers do have to be stronger, once you get into the flow, the thing just kind of goes on its own, and you're just kind of guiding it where it needs to be. I am interested to hear what you guys have on this topic, the experience you have flipping heavier. But yeah, I feel like if you haven't had a chance to flip a heavier balisong, please give it a try, because it is something that has really changed my opinion on a lot of the balisongs that I have about too little weight not offering what I personally am looking for. Now, that's not to say that light balisong doesn't have pros, because of course it does. Everything has pros and cons. A light balisong, like I said previously, it gives you a longer, I think it's a better entry tool when you're first learning to flip, and you kind of have like this curious drive, so you're more likely to flip for longer periods of time. Not that I don't, but a lighter balisong is more accessible. You know, you're not going to get those crampy feelings or whatever, or you can flip longer without getting that physical discomfort, which I think for a beginner balisong flipper is really important. You want it to be the minimal of a barrier of entry as possible. Another thing is that I believe tricks such as ladders, like I can't really do it too well on this one, but I'm trying to learn where I just keep going over and over and over. Not necessarily an infinite ladder, whereas like I can do an infinite ladder, like the reverse infinite ladder. But there's this guy like Balisongs or whatever, and he does this thing where he flicks everything between his fingers, and he always does it on a knot, a Nautilus that is. And I think the reason is that it's just simply less effort required when you're doing this to translate between the two. And then if you do have a bad form, the knife isn't going to go flying in a different way. A con, actually, with flipping heavy, which is something that this has definitely brought to my mind, is that for trying to appease to the YouTube lords, this thing is thirsty, if you understand what I mean. It being so heavy, if it were to make contact with you, being a heavier blade, there is something to be said there. I'm sure you can make the inference needed on that. Whereas a lighter one is not going to be as significant of a problem. Again, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But all that's to be said in more of an open discussion for you guys. I'm curious to hear what you think. Have you flipped heavy? And if so, how long did you stick with it? Are you still flipping heavy? What would be your ideal weight range for a balisong? Now, 4.6 is kind of a lot. I think if I could choose my perfect weight, it might be 4.3, maybe 4.1, but I digress. I'm here to hear what you guys are saying too, so please feel free to leave a comment. And yeah, it's been Pez Flips, and I hope you guys have a good weekend. Enjoy your Labor Day weekend. And I will see you guys, I think, in the next video, giving my final thoughts on this gentleman right here. Alrighty. Peace.